everyone, my name is Spuky, and this is Growing My Grandpa, a psychological horror virtual pet game, where you grow your own grandpa. Would you like to view a tutorial regarding the basic game mechanics? Sure. Week 1. I excused Adrienne during music class today and spoke with her about recent strings of demerits. It was our first time meeting outside of our quarterly evaluations, and I believe it went well. I can certainly understand Mrs. Richardson's classroom observations concerning Adrienne's emotional state. She was, of course, intensely shy when we first met. As I understand it, she's similarly withdrawn in her classroom activities and only speaks or acts when she absolutely must. Some things she simply will not do. Instead of participating in mandatory group activities, she will sit alone and accept that she will receive a demerit. Before the meeting, I read Mrs. Richardson's parent-teacher report, which allowed me to estimate some of Adrienne's home life. The parents are well educated and come from a prestigious background, but they lack time to properly nurture Adrienne. She is often alone, and when she is not, the parents seem to not understand the importance of warmth and affirmation when dealing with somebody so young. Having two parents of this reserved and icy temperament exacts an inhibition in a child. The child's imagination is subdued, but only ostensibly, for it eventually finds its way into regular life. I surmised that I would be able to reach out to Adrienne by way of make-believe. How are you liking your new house? You told me you used to live close by, but it can still be a big adjustment. A new room, a new school. The basement. I like that. The basement? Yeah. Well, there's lots of cool stuff. Mom and Dad sent me down there. Your mom and Dad made you go? Yeah, but there's lots of cool stuff. Well, that's not why they sent me down there, though. Why did they send you down there? Fighting. They were fighting, shouting. I came in to help and they shouted at me. They said, go clean up downstairs, so I went. That sounds tough. Did they fight a lot? No, well It's alright, Adrienne. Maybe you can tell me more about the basement instead. Okay, well, it was weird at first, the stuff down there, but cool. I found something living, sort of. That's very interesting, Adrienne. Please tell me more. By indulging her in her fantasies and stories, I was able to glean more of an understanding of Adrienne's anxiety surrounding her home and parents. The symbols of Adrienne's story seem to carry their own traumatic weight, and her exploration of the basement may very well be a vehicle for the conveyance of her anxiety. Whatever might come of our next meeting, whether she will engage in similar make-believe, I will set down her story here. Adrienne's story begins with her delving into the basement with a trash receptacle and the goal of cleaning up. She discovered one of the walls was covered in plastic bags. She went to investigate, intent on tearing away whatever they covered. Trash bags. Upon removing the plastic trash bags from the wall, she noticed that the interior lining was covered in glass. Like a window, I offered. No, she said, like a mirror, reflecting inwards toward the animal they covered. I gently asked her what exactly this animal was. Here's where the material reality of the story took a turn for the explicitly fantastic and imaginary. Oh dear. Upon her discovery of it, at her gaze, it grew or extended its shaggy-haired self. Hair like the fur of a dog, I offered. No, she said, not like the fur of a dog, nor the hair on her head. It grew out towards her, the animal's hair, reaching out. It was hard, standing almost straight, like the hair on a brush. A bristle, I offered. Yes, she said. She was very afraid at first, but then very curious. I asked her what else was in the room. More things hidden away, she said. Things of Grandpa's as well. First she found a hidden passage under the stairs. Inside were strange dolls, magic objects, naked, faceless figures. I heard these cryptic utterances and merely nodded. In order to keep the game of make-believe going, I only pressed for details where I thought necessary. The faceless dolls could be a simple metaphor for the anonymity she feels in her own home. The hidden passage, I'm unsure of what to make of that. The revealing of the concealed seems to be thematic in her fantasy. The door under the stairs is but one example. The darkness of the shadowy corner unnerves you. You cannot explore here without some form of light. Okay. Trash pile. Nothing there. Huh. Okay. It's gotta be something to do with this, right? Oh, okay. I pulled the, glue out or insulation. Once she removed the panel, she found the magical hidden passage, as she was very specific about what she took. She found a magic book, a magic doll, a photo of her late grandpa, and magic glue. Fake doll. Oh, I don't like that at all. A slouching doll, its material is rough and coarse. Papers crudely bound together to form a book. The impetus of this research was the recognition of a particular pattern in fragments of documents relating to magic and magico-religious practices. Numerous sources were drawn from: commentaries on laws relating to the banning of sorcery and necromancy, compilations of folk charms relating to love spells, hagiograms of saints and their encounters with devils. The list spans many centuries and a great distance, from the Levant to the Khazar Cognate to the border of the modern nation-states of Russia and Kazakhstan today. From this paper trail arose a consistent account about a certain form of magic relating to the binding of demons to a sorcerer's will. A demon called the Heaven of Needles, or the Angel of Needles, was known to be kept best by shamanistic keepers or wards who suffer from face blindness. Prosopagnasia. I've heard that word before, but I don't remember how to pronounce it. Whether by birth or through developmental causes like a stroke or head injury. It was known to be extremely effective, but terribly dangerous, so much so that it became outlawed several times and was generally a popular scapegoat related to unexpected death. This nexus of magico-religious meaning-making, sorcery regarding human-related desires, and the history of science of neurological disorders related to the fusiform gyrus is where the subject of this dissertation will reside. I will outline further and then analyze the historical sources I mentioned previously, then I will go into the neurology of mystic and magico-religious experiences. After that, I will detail my ongoing correspondence with a resident of the Ural Mountain region, who is an expert folklorist and keeper of traditions he claims to have passed down through his extended family for generations. Okay, that was a lot. That was very wordy. Was that the magic book? All-purpose glue. A photo of your late grandfather, Mr. PhD. On the reverse side of the photograph, there's more text. Good luck on your trip to the Urals. Stay warm. Was our grandpa the guy that wrote that? All clean. This space will not be dirty again until next week. I interrupted to ask what she did with these magical, mysterious materials. Grow grandpa, she explained plainly, and then without missing a beat, she continued on with her story. Feeling this was a potent symbol, I stopped her again to ask what she meant. Somewhat puzzled, I did not understand immediately, she explained slowly. Grandpa lives in the cage in the other room, the cage behind the door. They grew people in the cage. Hastily written note. I have repeatedly called your homes to no avail, and so I am forced to leave this here for you all. I found William sitting in the corner of the enclosure area, seemingly severely concussed. Whiskers was gone, and none of its usual hiding places. I immediately suspected the worst. The project thus must be suspended for now. I'm leaving up the usual mirrored coverings we use to keep the Anthropoidic Void sealed. I have done my best to lock up everything on such short notice. It's a hasty fix, but it will require some time to find a more permanent remedy. I'm honestly hoping you do not find this note, as I intend to lock the house down too. I intend to race off to you to retrieve the lockbox keys. Do not worry about William's key. It and the rest of his equipment is almost certainly deep within Whiskers now. I pray you do not enter this room. No matter how it may appear, William cannot be helped, and is only kept alive as a means of continuing predation on the rest of us. I will say once again, no matter what state you may encounter William in, he cannot be helped. I have sympathy for the young man, I truly do, but I found on his person several photos of his late sister which would imply certain risks he knew he was taking. Our extant research materials have now become possible liabilities, either criminal or professional in nature, so I've stashed them away. I believe I let you all know I might do this if we were ever to experience an event such as this. I hope you all remember what I told you. So long then, Dr. H. Okay. A note on lab experiments. 1 out of 4. 1. For the sake of university policy and the health of any future career you hope to have, you will abide by the non-disclosure contract you've signed. 2. Do not break the anthropoidic vacuum without my prior consultation and approval. 3. Any anthropoidic forms brought into the enclosure area must not be left unattended. When not in dormancy, the sample will attempt to take anthropoidic shells. Please see shell notes for more on that. Oops. Oh, shit. I skipped that one. Fuck. Ah, damn. Alright, well, 3. Ritual behavior with the sample, trading, bargaining, will result in dismissal from the project. The precise mechanisms of the exchange of symbols and gifts required for a requested desirous yield is not known, and even when the anecdotal accounts of success are illegible, end in violent death. I feel like I missed a lot of context from that second note. Regarding growth cycles, every time Whiskers regenerates and leaves dormancy, it is to be logged as a new propagation. The sample's bodily existence cannot be illegible, i.e. a part cannot be cut from the whole, so there can only be one living propagation. Propagations are to be terminated after 5 weeks. Any further development puts us at risk. Termination procedures will be posted and followed with extreme care. With all that out of the way, I want to welcome you to the project. I look forward to working with you. Alright, let's go in the room. Beyond the door, in the room, the cage was hidden, concealed in another cloak of inward-facing mirrors. A hidden cage lined with mirrors. It's strange, almost poetic, the elaborate fantasy of self-reflection, concealment, captivity. At the cage, she finally cast her spell, but it was confusing, she confided at first. She took the magic doll, the magic glue, and the photo of her grandpa, and she combined them, and she wished very hard. I can only assume in this fantasy that the next her wish would come true, and what child's story would it not? Particular human representation, generic human figure. We've got a doll and a photo of grandpa. Glue them together. A tangible symbol of intention and desire. She put Grandpa in the cage, assuming that that was part of the ritual. She was not clear on how it worked. What precise instructions she could glean from her grandfather's magic book was complicated by her reading comprehension. She wished with all her heart, and then she told me she waited for a while and for something to happen, and after that time she began to cry. I cried really hard, she said. I wanted Grandpa to be back. I wanted my parents to stop being so mean. And it hurt me. It hurt me wish for Grandpa to come back, for my parents to be different. I could feel it through the walls, and it felt me through the air. I asked her what exactly she meant. She could only repeat what she said. By this time lunch was almost over. I said goodbye to Adrienne, and she left to rejoin her class. I was left to consider our conversation. I believe the storytelling strategy I've employed was not unfruitful, but I must probe deeper if I can. Although I can be sure of nothing I interpret, the impressions I get may begin to help me get an idea of the right questions to ask. Knowledge you acquired this week has given you access to certain topics or keywords you can discuss with Grandpa. Wish. Consider discussing this when Grandpa emerges. You've also gained the following keyword. Shell. Week 2. I met again with Adrienne in order to address her emotional outbursts in the past few weeks. It is our second time meeting, and while it is standard practice to have multiple sessions with a troubled student, as I assemble a report for the counseling department, I could not help but think, as we sat down in my office, that Adrian has already seemed to show a remarkable change in self-esteem and confidence, and perhaps my and Mrs. Richardson's estimation of her as emotionally disturbed was erroneous. The paralyzing shyness and withdrawn attitude Adrian possessed last week was not entirely diminished, but she seemed to hold herself differently this week. However, this only lasted as long as our conversation pertained to initial introductory pleasantries. When I began once again asking her about her parents, her feelings regarding her new school and her new home, she quickly lost what new confidence she had gathered up and withdrew into herself. So once again, I partook in some collaborative make-believe, but this time I was aided by the fact that I had managed to do some research into Adrian's grandfather, and I had some insight into what she might actually be finding in the basement. Now, this may be overstepping my bounds as a school counseling caseworker, but this was all in the service of making Adrian comfortable and happy in this learning environment. In any case, I was able to dig up information regarding the grandfather by inquiring at the university in town. Not that I make it a habit of sleuthing, but I had a suspicion the grandfather was a professor there, or at least some sort of researcher, due to the fact that the newly constructed laboratory on the campus I drive by every day bears his name in memorial. He was some sort of anthropologist, or linguist, or neuroscientist. I didn't have to dig that deep before the scope of his work became dizzying, and I ran up against the limits of my undergraduate education. But back to make-believe. What is your grandpa like? Is he a smart man? Not anymore, but I'm teaching him. So he's grown a good deal then, and you've been feeding him well? Yeah, he's getting bigger, but he has a lot of room in his cage. He's still behind the bars? Yeah, well, he might be able to climb out eventually. There's this vent in the ceiling. Well, perhaps if he climbs out, I could meet him someday. Yeah, maybe, but he's not ready to leave. He can't take care of himself. I have to feed him, pick up after him. Ah, you store the food in your lunchbox? That's nice of you to share. He can almost talk. You cannot speak with him? He doesn't have a mouth, sort of. But then how do you feed him? He has a mouth on the outside, on a shell, or the stuff that is his skin. I'm a little confused. Maybe you can go through a typical day with your grandpa. Okay. I asked her to explain how exactly she goes about growing her grandpa, and Adrian began another tale. According to Adrian, in the weeks she had passed, much had changed in the basement. The hairy thing that was here before is gone. The lunchbox is currently empty. Seek out food for Grandpa. Should go see Grandpa first. It was scary at first, she said. The way he moved, the way the doll's skin covered him. I wanted to interject, but this somehow seemed inappropriate, but I kept listening. When I look at him, she continued, when I think about him, he grows and moves. It's like he's growing for me. So he's growing bigger now, I asked. Yes, she said, bigger every day. That's not Grandpa. That's not Grandpa. This begins the actual growing part of growing your grandpa. Beneath the doll's burlap skin, the follicles knit together what resembles a proper person, your grandpa. You're in charge of its cognitive development and diet until it is able to sustain itself. Currently, you're observing Grandpa. Please click the arrow back button below for a brief tutorial of your duties as a caretaker. Here we can see a variety of options regarding growing your grandpa. Highlighted in red are objectives related to feeding and teaching Grandpa. Important messages regarding Grandpa's recent activity will also appear here. You will need to find it food and learning material before you can move on to the next week. Some foods will make Grandpa happy, others merely content. Some food will make Grandpa disgusted to the point of nausea. Learning material is also scattered throughout the basement. Seek out vocabulary cards intended to help teach English and basic anthropoidic concept formation. The options highlighted in red are related to navigating around Grandpa's enclosure. The Go to Grandpa option will let you perform all actions directly related to Grandpa, feeding, teaching, observing, etc. Accessing the Study corner will let you go over any documents you pick up as the weeks go by. It's a good idea to learn about the world and the people who last occupied the space. Accessing the Kitchen corner will let you search for food in the old refrigerator and prepare food for Grandpa if need be. The Help button will replay this tutorial. The Save Game button will save your current progress. You can only have one save file at a time, so if you save data, you'll be asked if it's okay to overwrite it. The Exit Game button will take you back to the main menu. More buttons may or may not appear depending on your development of Grandpa, so watch out for them. One final note, take care to explore the basement at your leisure. However, due to the entropic nature of clutter and trash, different weeks may allow you to find things that you had not previously discovered. Good luck. Okay, let's check out the study corner and see if we can look over documents. Let's read that note we'd missed. The sample's exposure to some of our neuronal activity is unavoidable. However, the speed at which its desirous yield is produced can be dampened by several precautions regarding libidinal and emotional urges. Keep conversation not related to lab work to a minimum. If you begin to suspect you're developing attachments to your colleagues, contact me as soon as possible. Okay. Don't fall in love. Examine educational posters. Okay. Search filing cabinets. Cashews! It looks edible. Grandpa might like this. Sure. Cashews are a Grandpa-like food. A lot of trash in this filing cabinet. All clean. What is this? An account of an acquisition. It was said to pass from one family of steppe people to another, but pressed on its ultimate origin, illegible, somewhere to the south, coiled in a bowl covered in incantations, buried upside down by a graveyard, a common late antiquity demon trap. The keeper, an elderly man in failing health, was ready to expound on and on about the dangers of the organism, but when asked, The keeper, an elderly man in failing health, was ready to expound on and on about the dangers of the organism, but when I asked more pointed questions about the history of its acquisition, I was given curt responses that had a way of circling back to vague warnings. Okay. So this weird bristly thing is some kind of a demon that they found in the steppes. Some old man had it trapped in a jar. Vocabulary card Grandpa. Teach Grandpa this word to read the notes of past educators. How convenient that the researchers had a vocabulary card called Grandpa, and Grandpa is exactly what we are trying to turn this thing into. That looked like something. I guess it's just more trash. Yeah, so this is some sort of shape-shifting demon creature that these researchers have captured. You remove the taped-down fabric to reveal the cabinet's wooden bottom. Notation regarding sample exoskeletons. Research participants, please take note. Each growth from a cycle does not require a shell, but you may find the sample will often try and seize on something somewhat flexible it can grow into, along with any desirous yield it may generate, or else it will move from one shell to the next as it outgrows them. In the small amounts of time I've spent with it in preparation, I've noticed it tends toward human forms. However, we should keep a tight lid on the anthropoidic seal in order to be cautious before we begin to experiment with exposing it long-term to anthropoid stimuli. A note regarding cleanup procedures. To my colleagues, I don't mean to be overly severe in tone, but Dr. Hart's work is very important and the material we are working with is potentially very dangerous. I will be handing out a copy of this note as a reminder to everyone. I'm not trying to single any particular person out. We all have misconceptions about the nature of this project from time to time. But with that out of the way, here are some things to keep in mind. 1. The active growth must be thoroughly terminated via the correct procedures at the very least 4 weeks after dormancy is interrupted. It doesn't matter what you've done or haven't done regarding tests or procedures or how much the anthropoidic vacuum has been disrupted, we're not ready to go beyond 4 weeks at this point. A step-by-step guide to termination has been posted up by the enclosure wall. Please, please, please do not place the educational posters over this posting. 2. Do not disrupt the anthropoidic vacuum without Dr. Hart's prior consultation and approval. In case of any emergency where the vacuum is disrupted, put on your equipment and begin the lockdown procedure. Make an extensive note of when and how the breach occurred. 3. If you find the habitat empty, page Dr. Hart immediately, but do not attempt to speak with anyone else. This thing can get very smart. I'm sure you're all aware from the stories that we heard on our acquisition trip, the greatest caution should be used when dealing with a potentially aggressive mimicry scenario. Please seek me out if you have any more questions. Name the topic Biohazard Bin. Okay. Can I... Yeah, okay. They did post the educational posters over it. Oh, shit. I hit the wrong button. That's okay. I'm already right here. Look over documents. Termination procedure. 1. The researcher will seal off the enclosure bars, ensuring minimal gas leakage during the later fumigation process, and then retrieve the burn barrel and place it near the enclosure. 2. Allow at least 48 hours of time where the current growth cycle experiences no human-related stimuli. Do not enter the enclosure area, nor any part of the basement. Ideally, you will not be on the grounds at all. 3. After 48 hours, 2 researchers will enter the basement wearing their assigned mirror mask, mirror apron, and powered air-purifying respirator. The researcher will use the vent system to fumigate and the enclosure area. Wait 30 minutes and then use the fan system to ventilate the enclosure. Keep the fans running during steps 3 and 4. 4. Re-enter the enclosure area wearing your assigned mirror masks and aprons. The organism may or may not be in complete dormancy. If it is not in full dormancy, be assured that its capacity to act against you will be greatly diminished. With your assigned power drills, quickly remove any enclosure bars needed to access the organism. Put them aside for later reinstallation. 5. Put the organism into the burn barrel. Incinerate the organism thoroughly. Wait for any smoke to be properly cleared by the fan system. 6. Turn off the fans. One researcher will retrieve the nucleus from the ash and place it in the mirror box. The other researcher will sift through the ash and place any other substantial remains in the biohazard bin in the room outside the enclosure area. The bin is locked for security purposes. The safety code is 323245. The researchers will fill out a termination form and leave it for Dr. Hart. 323245. 323425. Hold on, I'm gonna mark that down. Okay. That was filing cabinet 3, right? Yep. Medical imaging device. Okay, you'd put like x-rays on this. Alright, that's it then, right? Let's go to the kitchen. Search the upper fridge. Lettuce. It looks edible. Grandpa might like this. Brown banana. Looks edible. Grandpa might like this. Okay. Prepare food. Soft fruit or vegetable. Unappealing item. I don't have any unappealing items. Let's see what else we can find before we go to Grandpa. Here's a cabinet. Slouching under the weight of rotten refuse. Blueberries. Is that what that is? It looks edible. Grandpa might like this. Okay. Check out the top drawer. All clean. An account of an acquisition. Before we began, he had us all cover our faces completely. An earthenware pot was illegible, and on the inside, as we stole brief glances at it, we could see that the interior was inlaid with mirrors. The illegible gave it small pieces of dough, spoiled food, chicken feed, illegible, keeping it content. The keeper gestured toward the small bag where the food composted, and told us to be careful not to feed it any meat. I asked if the rotting food was enough to sustain it, how it might get nutrients from any of this. The keeper regarded me seriously and said it did not matter what it was fed, the act of feeding itself was what mattered. The act of feeding flesh is another act, however. He then gave me another series of grave warnings regarding not keeping any animal-derived foods near where I might be keeping it. Okay. Why are there doll heads in here? I don't like that. Bottom drawer. Okay. It's locked. Trash pile. Something about that painting looks strange. A folder full of radiographic images. Okay. I can take that to the medical imager. All clean. Fiberglass insulation. This isn't really food. Grandpa might eat it, however. Another trash pile. The waste here smells particularly strong. Oh, what's this? A paper doll? This might be useful in the construction of magic symbols. All clean. Okay. How about over here? Trash. Is that another vocabulary card, maybe? Oops. Corroded battery. This isn't really food. Grandpa might eat it. Hello. Teach Grandpa this word. Bulbous growth. Something appears to be growing from the wall. You take a closer look. Pulsating sac. The slimy membrane that its skin seems to contain... The slimy membrane that is its skin seems to contain something. It might be able to be opened with a blade. Okay. And I still can't go over there. And put the fiberglass insulation inside the banana. Insulation is concealed in the browning banana flesh. I don't know why I would do that, but I can. Nope. Back. Defeat Grandpa twice and teach him 2 words. I think I can do that. Let's observe Grandpa. You examine Grandpa, noting its movements, respiration, and general mood. Oh, I see. I see it in the chair there. Grandpa seems sort of sluggish and bored. You get the feeling it may be more content and readily cooperative once fed and taught a word or two. Attempt to communicate. No response. Let's feed Grandpa. Would you like to view the tutorial before you start? You'll not be prompted again. Sure. This brief tutorial will go over the basics of feeding Grandpa. Via induction of your unprotected insula, Grandpa has stimulated the production of tooth enamel to mimic a human mouth. You will need to be fed through this in order to properly learn and grow. First, you'll need to select an item from the lunchbox. Click on the lunchbox in the bottom right corner. Contents of this lunchbox will then be displayed. Select an item from the lunchbox. Doing so will fill your hand with this item. Note that any food can be put back into the lunchbox by clicking the lunchbox with the full hand. Before Grandpa can be fed, it must judge the food by smell. Hover your hand above Grandpa's olfactory bulbs. If Grandpa is pleased, it will allow you to feed it. Most foods Grandpa will accept. However, getting Grandpa to consume other things requires some culinary discretion. When Grandpa is willing to be fed, hover your hand over its mouth and click. Grandpa will then consume the food. Good luck on feeding Grandpa. You approach the small... Oops. Oh, my. Click on Grandpa's nostrils with a handful of food. Alright, so we got cashews, lettuce, blueberries, battery, and we've got insulation concealed in a banana. Let's start with some nice lettuce. Grandpa's in... Click on its nostrils. Where's its nostrils? Click on Grandpa's nostrils left of its mouth. Oh, there we go. By its neutral reaction, this... Said this will be safe to eat, I guess? Oh, there it goes. The meal appears to have been sufficient. What about this? Grandpa's unable to detect the unappealing item in the food. Enjoy. Although quickly consumed, the meal seems to be causing some indigestion, and with a sudden lurch, Grandpa empties its stomach onto the floor. Contents pool together in front of the cage. Oh, sorry, Grandpa. Can I make it up with some blueberries? Grandpa finds this palatable. Meal is sufficient. Okay. And some cashews? Grandpa's too full to consume such a mediocre meal. What? Okay. You step away from the window set in the bars, and Grandpa silently slides back to its corner. 2 digestible food and 1 other. Oh, examine stomach contents. There's a key? Still somewhat wet. This might help you explore more of the basement. Oh, there was a locked drawer. Hold on. In the cabinet, right? The bottom drawer? You try the safe's lock with a key you found, and it pops open. A photo of your mother as a young woman. The recognition of this face kicks off a cascade of emotion and meaning deep within your psyche. Is that it? I could combine... I could grow a mom, too. Tangible symbol of intention and desire. Okay. Let's offer Mother Doll. I feel like I shouldn't do that, right? Let's teach Grandpa some words first. Let's teach him hello. Would you like to view the tutorial before you start? Yeah, let's see. This brief tutorial will go over teaching Grandpa pronunciation and vocalization. The vocabulary word you picked will appear in the top left corner. In the bottom right corner will be a pentagon that is divided into 8 sections. Okay, a section of the pentagon will be highlighted briefly, a notification sound will play, and soon another section will be highlighted. You control a small round icon that sits above the pentagon by using your mouse. The ball is constrained to the limits of the pentagon. The goal is to keep your icon over the highlighted areas and move it as the area changes sections around the pentagon. When you hold left click above the correct highlighted area, the icon will start to vibrate along with the stimulated vocal cords, and the current letter of the word will begin to turn red. By holding over the highlighted section and adjust your icon as it changes place, soon the letter will become fully red. After every letter becomes red, Grandpa will proudly pronounce the word to you, and it will be considered learned. Teaching Grandpa these words will accelerate its cognitive development and lead to further breakthroughs in general intelligence. Teach the word hello? Yes. You approach a small window. Oh dear. Deep within Grandpa's strange membranes phonate confidently. I don't know if that was hello. Having completed the lesson, you take a look back at the vocabulary module card and the notes there written by administrators of the past. Hello, part of vocabulary and vocalization module in the A2 Conversational Basics. General pronunciation comments, sloppy articulation. Module comments see below. We're already encountering some difficulty as Whiskers' subjectivity is so much determined by a diverse and dynamic array of influences. It attempts to mimic the thoughts and desires it passively intercepts, and these limitations go on to structure the basics of its identity. Only later in Whisker's growth cycle does it begin to form an identity or identities that are coherent and capable of resembling a sane, rational human being when engaged in conversation. One must imagine how hard it would be to converse with someone who is not yet oriented in one particular way towards who or how they are, because they might have 20 different honest answers to those questions, all of them mixed and muddled together. Because of this, we have started with the basics of conversation: greetings, partings, identifying one another, forming questions, etc. It's fortunate Whisker's current growth, number 19 I believe, has developed a mostly accurate human mouth simulation. Hello was a bit of a challenge in the previous growth, as it had failed to develop an adequate organ to act as a human tongue. Step away from the bars and store the module card in the document table. Okay, let's teach Grandpa another word. Oh, hey, that was pretty good. Having completed the lesson, you take a look at the back of the card. Grandpa, part of Vocabulary and Vocalization Module E81 family. General pronunciation comments. Usual trouble with articulation. Voice thin, raspy, possibly underdeveloped larynx. Module comments see below. We've done several sessions of what we're calling familial relation simulation. I and a co-researcher sit in chairs opposite the enclosure. We're wearing the usual masks, and we begin to act out a scene, mostly through improvisation, that might roughly resemble a kitchen table conversation between an immediate family. Repeated trials would reveal, although our simulated conversation was purposely vague and unspecific regarding persons and identities, we would only address each other as brother, father, sister, etc., it soon became apparent the encoded information and associations we had unconsciously drawn upon when hearing and speaking these words was being picked up on by Whiskers, and its psi-type field of reception interpretation of brain-mind events semantic content. My co-researcher William noticed this in a simulation where Whiskers was given a role as a sister and he as a brother. I was the father. Whiskers began responding to certain prompts with unusual specificity, as well as a general pattern of timbre of speech that continued with unusual consistency. As soon as the simulation ended and we left the enclosure area, William let me know that Whiskers was almost certainly drawing from encoded memories of his late sister. Mapping out exactly what regions and centers of neural activity are intercepted by the psi-type field will take extensive neuroimaging that we do not have at this site. Currently, we only have less precise portable equipment. However, our experiences so far are eerily in line with folk knowledge and folk explanations regarding the being's access to desires, and we can begin to infer that it has access to certain portions of the limbic system and the ventral temporal cortex. Okay. That was a lot. Okay, so we've taught Grandpa all we know. We've fed him all that we can. We've already examined his stomach contents. I don't think I'm going to offer the mother doll. That seems like a bad idea. Let's attempt to communicate. Grandpa accedes to your request. It approaches the bars and begins to unknit its skin. The inner Grandpa, though still not fully formed, is revealed. It may be fruitful to speak with it, if it can respond. Oh. Hi, Grandpa. Let's ask about Grandpa's shell. With a great deal of effort, Grandpa gurgles fragmented thoughts through its ill-formed lips. Skin, my body, all human skin around me. Give more. Grow more to fit. Okay. What about wish? Mother, will father. New lives out of the air. The dark spiny filaments that make up the majority of Grandpa's body begin to oscillate rapidly. The air behind your eyes, I could taste it. What about the biohazard bin, Grandpa? It fails to produce more than a wet and frustrated sputtering noise. Goodbye. Grandpa silently ascends back into its shell. Boy, that's creepy as hell. One thing we haven't done is check out these images. You slip the radiographic images you found onto the machine's display. Propagation number 21, day 19 after dormancy. Anthropoidic vacuum broken, yes. Terminate at 21 days. Intriguing results with regard to the mimic hypothesis. A participant entered a sealed chamber adjacent to Whiskers in growth cycle number 21, which had been freed from the anthropoidic vacuum. Constructed quite economically from plastic and broken mirrors, the first propagation's original earthenware vacuum was shattered during the move-in. Between the two, there was a semi-opaque glass panel that allowed observation both ways. The human participant was asked to think of somebody in their particular consciousness, fictional or no, and cogitate it on their image, personality, face if possible, voice if possible, etc. A participant chose Jesus of Nazareth, and with weekly repeated exposure to the participant's imagings, propagation number 21 began forming what resembled an anthropoid Nazarene in the fold of its spines. Previous human-oriented tests have always bore out a result that Whiskers would form an anthropoid team member, be it me, or Dr. Hart, or Gerald, and we assumed that it was merely mimicking one of us. Dr. Hart has always contended that the desirous yield, or the anthropoid reproduction Whiskers creates when in contact with human beings, has always been based on the conception and relation of the person through someone else. With this framework, the desirous yield is not actually a replica of a person, or if it is only the replica of a fiction of a person generated in the mind of another. This desirous yield was not Jesus Christ, but the participant's image of Jesus, assembled from their religious upbringing, religious artwork, depictions in popular culture, and etc. This radiograph was taken right before the destruction of the growth cycle, while Whiskers was rendered unconscious via fumigation. It seems like with every successive propagation, the stem cells in the organism work a little faster, but I'm not paranoid. It's technically deathless, yes, but we're bumming up whatever knowledge it's gained when we incinerate it. I don't believe in magic just yet. We're burning up whatever. Okay, so it mimics a person, but it also creates copies of people. Propagation number 2, day 0 after dormancy, anthropoidic vacuum broken, yes, terminate at 6 days. We've taken to calling it Whiskers, though of course some have interpreted as hair or needles or quills, but Whiskers is more accurate, as the needles are really more like supersensory follicles or spines. The nerve nets distributed throughout the morphology of these spines resemble those of genus Hydra, but have myelin sheaths that are functionally the same as vertebrae. As we can see in this X-ray, each spine is laden with dense optical arrangements similar to compound eyes. The Hydra connection is assuredly worth investigating with regard to the organism's capacity for regeneration and anecdotal deathlessness. It certain is a robust enough creature to inspire marvel that is not untinged with fear. How many of these do I have? Okay. Propagation number 14, day 14 after dormancy, anthropoidic vacuum broken, no, terminate at 16 days. Exposure to mammalian forms, part of a series of zoomorphic influences, led to further understanding of the propagation's ability to simulate the somatic stem cells that constitute a fully developed animal. I write simulate in the previous statement because examining the tissues of each propagation leads me to believe its amazing capacity for accelerated growth of vastly different forms comes from its cell-level mutability. And yet at no time does it function as the thing it becomes, except in the sense that it mimics it. That is to say, when Whiskers is removed from dormancy and replicated a rabbit's morphology, it is not seeing from the rabbit's eyes, nor smelling from the rabbit's nose, but pretending that it does, and doing a very good job of it. Is that what that's supposed to be, a rabbit? Propagation number 5, day 10 after dormancy, vacuum not broken, terminated at 12 days. The radiograph was taken at or around growth cycle number 4. The strange thing is that it was the subject of the image was found nowhere near the enclosure, and almost like a piece of Whiskers fell off and scurried into the corner. I feel like we've learned a lot since then, but at the time I remember speaking about the morphology being weird, not really even resembling any extant zoomorphic structure, besides maybe a cuttlefish. Then it happened to open the thing up. Inside were all these little dead amoeba-like things, but they all sort of looked like they had faces that were just barely there. After I took the radiograph, I gathered it and went to go through the biohazard bin. As I walked by the bars of the enclosure, I could hear Whiskers suddenly going wild, flopping around, grunting excitingly. Could it have smelled the cuttlefish thing? Would it eat its own production? I guess it's technically flesh. This is beyond the scope of the project, but it could be that without stimulus of an active brain, or more specifically a healthy and active brain capable of face recognition and theory of mind, Whiskers begins to pull whatever it can from the limited data available to it. Again, this is not our focus at the time, but I left a note for Dr. Hart just in case he wanted to take a look. All right, that's a lot of that, and I think that is where I'm going to call it for right now. We will check out week 3 next time, and as always, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye! Hey, if you liked that video, why not give me a like and a subscribe? And if you didn't like it, go ahead and leave a comment below and let me know why. Thanks for watching.